Hello, 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 YouTube. Welcome, welcome. So, I'm pretty excited. We have a new Torchlight season again. This time it's Torchlight Infinite, the Overrealm season, and I'm excited. There's some really, really cool stuff in this one, so let's just quickly go through this patch note, through the video, and then the patch notes, and I'll tell you all about it. So, the first interesting thing is the new league mechanic that they show us,
Now, without further ado, let's
which is
so while you're blessed
basically Scourge. If you've played PoE and you've played in the Scourge League, this is
with an
essentially
Overrealm,
Scourge League,
you're going to stumble
where
across these
you summon these portals, you go inside them,
waters.
and it's like a
Interact with
dream
them,
type thing where like you're running through the map
kill
inside the
whatever pops
portal.
out, and you'll tear open a gateway to it.
So yeah, you enter as if it's like a dream, and now you go and you clear all the mobs in this area. But you see where it says floor 1? This is gonna go all the way up to floor 4. And the deeper you go, the harder and harder it's gonna get, but the more rewarding it's gonna get. And then like at some point at the end of this, there's just gonna be a massive like loot explosions. Where it's like when you get to like floor 4, you have all sorts of upgrades, like chance to get for non-legendary drop to become compasses. The rest of memories to be duped. You get all of these like shadowed bottles throughout. Then by the time you get to like the 4th floor, you should in theory just be spewing out a ton of loot. I think this mechanic looks really interesting. It's a bit hard to say because it really depends on the balance. Because for me, when I think about this, I think about the idea of you entering a map and then going to this portal and you need to clear the map like 4 times again. Like, sure, it's not the full map that you're doing, but like you're still clearing like these big areas out. So it's going to extend your map time by like a lot. So I would hope for that extended map time that this really is like juicy. Especially if it like works with compasses and stuff, and you do like some big drop quant compass strategies.
All field drops. Yeah, the loot
Oh,
explodes.
let's see, what is there next? Then the next thing to talk about is the new hero Bing 2, also known as Brat Bing, also known as Erica 4, also known as Echo. It has love titles. So Bing is the new hero that's come out. You've all seen this teaser probably. His whole hero identity is spell bursting. So if we go over to TLIDB quickly, the new pet that is coming out with Bing, as well as the new Bing's like hero traits, is all focused around the concept of spell burst. Now, if you know anything about me and have watched me play Torchlight before, you will obviously know that I am a massive, massive, massive spell burst lover. I am absolutely in love with Spellburst. It is my favorite mechanic. So this hero is basically like the hero I wanted from the get-go. So I'm really happy that they added Bing 2. And I'm not the biggest fan of how he looks. I'll be honest with you. The aesthetics is very much lacking. But these developers were so in tune. They knew that people wouldn't like how this new Bing looks, that they just preemptively went ahead and released a gender bender skin for her. And that is where the Brat Bing comes in, or Erica 4 comes in. What is going on? Sorry, my Discord is just not working right now. Oh well, it doesn't matter. I'll just skip to the end and show it to you guys. Because I had a picture prepared, but it's just not working because my internet sunks. Dum dum dum. There you go. This is the Brat Bing, also known as Erica 4. This is basically just if they took Erica 2, Brat Bing tiny. Stop calling her short. She's not short. Okay? This is essentially the Brat Bing.
Kex rated my stream with 30 viewers.
Thank you for the raid. Brat Bing is essentially what if you took Erica 2, you took the things that I think she excels in and makes her very good, and you transform it onto a new updated hero that focuses and emphasizes on that spell bursting. She is just Mia-sized. Fuck off. So I think this hero is going to be very interesting to play. I'm very excited for her. I will say there's some very interesting mechanics about her in the sense of this. As you can see, she has every single hero trait selected. And the way that this hero is actually going to work is you basically get to make a choice between multiple options at every step, except for this one. So here, do you see how there's like 2 icons and one of them's lit up, the other one's dark? Like here, there's the 3 icons. These are all choices that you are going to get to make on the character to fit it to your playstyle and your current gearing. I've looked through them. I think a lot of them are very interesting choices. I don't think there's ever like a choice that's like, this is the must-have, obvious go-to. I think a lot of them do have different options that are going to make sense, and that is just very exciting to have as an option. So I'm very, very excited for this hero, and I will be league starting it this season. And with that being said, I'll also be working on getting content out for Bing too, making endgame builds, making leveling guides, just stuff like that. Because obviously it's a bit difficult with it being a new season. We don't really know what's going to happen, blah, 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 blah. But we have a lot of information with TLIDB to make educated guesses. And we can look at the balanced state of items and spells and whatnot to figure out builds that we think will be strong in the endgame. That being said, though, there is still, 10 days before the new league comes out. And in that time, they can just make changes. So things that seem OP might get changed. Things that seem very underpowered might get buffed. Ingenuity, automation is must-have. That is true. There is one skill that's probably a must-have for Bing, no matter what you do. And that is going to be ingenuity automation, which is... Where is it? I think they changed the name. Is it not Auto Ingenuity Program? Yeah, they changed the name, which is this Auto Ingenuity Program. Because what this does is it just manually triggers your hero trait for you. Needing to click your hero trait sounds awful, so just having automation is always like a must-have for me. Okay, but continuing from that thought, there's also been some new exciting changes to the talent tree. The big thing that they're introducing this league is called Prisms.
Provide them that you can install directly onto one of your advancement talent.
And the way that this works is when you choose a talent to put it on, and you can put on any talent, you'll get this 3x3 box around the talents that will then give the talents effects, which is the random affixes, as well as on some of them change your main talent.
Panel supercharged.
So what you're going to see here is that, he has like his main talents and stuff, and there's some modified effects and things.
Or even, for example,
but some of the higher tier ones can actually replace your main talent. Whereas like you only have one choice, but this one choice is giving you 1,000 energy shield. I mean, max energy, which is absurdly strong. So there's quite a few of them that came out. I'm just going to quickly go through the ones that I think are very interesting for Bing, and just in general for my playstyle. A few Prisms hair agility is very, very cool. The way that this works is that... Oh, it doesn't actually say it here, whatever. The way that this works is that when you kill an enemy, your mobility skill's cooldown will reset, and you get additional damage for your next main skill. Now, when the patch notes came out, this was 0.2 seconds of an interval. It's actually been nerfed to 1 second, which is already a massive, massive nerf. So maybe that won't be as good anymore, because I changed already. Like I said, the patch is not out yet. There's going to be a lot of changes while they figure stuff out. Another one that seems very interesting to me is Keen Intellect. Keen Intellect basically makes it that for every type of skill you're equipped with, you're gaining some sort of special effect. For every spell skill, you're getting additional spell damage. For every mobility skill, you're getting additional cast speed, etc. I think that's a very, very interesting and cool concept. And, realistically, like you're gonna have 5 skills equipped. You're gonna get a decent amount of value out of this, especially if you're like using double empower skill to get 20% additional spell burst damage, as well as using 2 mobility skills for 20% cast speed, and then you have your main skill for another 5% additional spell damage. It's gonna be pretty good. There is Towering Presence. This is by far the most exciting one. I really hope this doesn't get changed, because I think this is awesome. What this is basically saying is that, you know how if you play an attack skill, the way that attack skill works is it's going to take your weapon's damage and like add all of that to your, add the weapon's like flat damage to your skills, to your spell's damage. What this is doing is essentially adding all of your weapon's damage and crit rating to your spells. So baseline spells have 500 crit rating, and they have like their own flat roll, and then they have a weapon effectiveness that gets converted into damage. With this now, what that's gonna allow you to do is you'll be able to make like a Death's Touch build, for example, with a two-handed weapon, and have a 20,000 damage main hand weapon, which is just giving you a ton of flat damage for your spells. I think this is going to be super cool. I think there's going to be a lot of interesting builds for it, and I'm very excited for it. And other than that, spell ripple is just generally very good. You know, just 30% of the time you're doing your abilities are hitting a second time for 125% of the damage. That's great. Other than that, nothing else too interesting. There's some interesting stuff for like CF3 and things, like self-delusion, but for Bing, I think it's probably going to be one of these 3D shows. Now, the last thing that's also in is Inverse Image. Inverse Image is one of the coolest mechanics I have ever seen. Because the way that this is going to work is that when you put it in, when you equip it on a talent, it is going to reflect all these talents back at the start with like a random modifier on them, like a random roll on them. So what that means is that, you know, you can have either minus 100% effect or plus 200% effect for all minor talents. Minus 100 to 100% for all mediums, minus 100 to 50% for all legendaries. This is going to allow you to do things in-game, such as reflecting, you know, some dex stacking nodes and getting a ton of dex on that tree. Like, you know, your 12% dex suddenly turns into, you know, 18% dex or 24% dex. Your 16 flat dex all of a sudden turns into 32 flat dex. And, you know, you're getting the 32 points along with the 16 base effect. I think that's going to be super awesome. I think there's going to be very interesting things you can do with this. My initial, like, instinct for what this would be amazing for is to reflect +1 spell burst on Bing to get an extra spell burst. That being said, though, they did say that this is a rare item. You can see the background is red. Realistically, this is going to be an hyper endgame, extremely expensive item. But I'm just hoping that the rest of the prisms aren't like that. Because I think it's a very cool system, and it would really suck if all of these are just like, you know, 20,000 plus FE and like nobody can use them. Okay, moving on from that though. I think that's the main like interesting new mechanics that's coming out. There's a bunch of new uniques and stuff that are coming in that seem interesting. A bunch of like new stuff that's coming out for Bing 2 specifically, and like, you know, making her, you know, giving her trophy nicks and all that stuff. But there is another thing that I want to talk about, which is the outlaw mechanic. So the outlaw mechanic from last season is obviously going core. They've made the process of leveling up to Crime Rating 5 very quick, which is very exciting. It is now quite simply just doing a few maps per level up. You know, it's gonna be extremely, extremely quick to get this to level 5, even if you start like late in the season. And they also give it its own like Atlas tree, or not Atlas tree, Netherrealm tree. And this is the Netherrealm tree. I don't know exactly what it is in this video, but this tree is absolutely humongous. There is so many points in this tree that I think this is going to be the type of mechanic that's very similar to like Cube, where if you want to do Cube, almost all of your point of investment goes into Cube, and you just take like one or two other things on the side that like don't take that many points. I think that the outlaw mechanic is going to be the same thing, where every single one of your points is just going into this Atlas tree, and you'll be left over with like 20, 30 points to just put in random other stuff. You know, if you can add like one mechanic on top of this type thing, which is a good thing. I do think that's a very good thing, because that means that, you know, for this deep investment, you are expected to get a lot of reward. After season 8, when Sandal went core, I was really worried about Outlaw turning into the same way that Sandal turned out, where it's like, you know, the tree's kind of whatever, it doesn't give you anything special or cool, and the mechanic itself just becomes like really bad. And I don't think that's going to be the case for Outlaw. I personally am probably going to be doing Outlaw on Nickstart and testing it out a lot. But another thing that I'll also be doing, which was also announced in this patch, which is very exciting, is the Blacksail Pet is making a comeback. So the Blacksail Pet, if you don't know what this pet does, it's like not that amazing of a pet, but it's really strong to have at level 1. Because it just makes it that you get a bit more loot from your black sails early on. Like leveling the pet up does basically nothing unless you go all the way to level 6. And it's just one of those pets that I think like every player should just have level 1, if you can get it. Because this pet at level 1 is going to be giving you just a much needed boost in the early game to get more memory threads, get more memory scraps, all that stuff early game, which is always, always, always expensive in the first few days, and to just get yourself up and running. Because Blacksail's like a very early game mechanic. You know, you can do it in Tarmok 7, Tarmok 8, and it's just going to be great. And then later on, when you get to Profound, like you can swap to something else because Blacksail doesn't scale up to Profound. But that's all from that. There's some other minor changes that aren't nothing's too super interesting. Like they made it that this reroll your like implicit doesn't break the item anymore. They made it that if you roll an implicit on an item, on a unique item, it is still tradable. It doesn't become bound to you, but at the same time, they reduce the odds of you hitting that, which that is a very nice change. Instead of having a 30% chance to be able to sell an item after corroding it, it's now 40%, which I definitely appreciate. And they've added something very interesting this league. So they added deep space only mechanics.
You'll
find these like bug things, these original sin cages. They are deep space only mechanics. You can only do them in deep space. They will not spawn prior to deep space. And they have their own Atlas tree as well, or like their own Netherrealm tree as well, which is going to be this cage talent constellation, which I think that's a really interesting, cool topic. That does bring up the point, though, of like, okay, but how do you get into deep space? Because getting immunities and stuff like that is quite annoying. They've actually reworked the immunity system, that instead of needing to get like immune to X, immune to Y, immune to Z, the way that it works now is just everything gives you chance for element avoidance or chance for the other avoidance. So instead of needing to get to like, you know, everything immune, now what you do is you just get 100% avoidance. And instead of needing to like give up your memory slot for like 1 immunity or giving an implicit up for 1 immunity, you're now just, you know, mixing and matching your gear around to get to 100% avoidance. Which, it's going to be interesting to see. I need to play with it first to feel it. I do think it opens a lot more opportunity to get like some avoidance in your gear, to get some avoidance in your talent tree. Because items like the belt, which has a chance to avoid elemental ailments on it, felt kind of useless because there was no real good way to get to 100% element avoidance other than doing like, you know, machines. Going into specific talent trees, I mean. Not machines, still Vanguard. You know, the only way you could really do it is by going to still Vanguard and then picking up resistance, where you get 1% elemental elements avoidance for your like 1% of effective erosion rate. Oh, and then the last thing I think that's worth mentioning is if you are an Aeterna farmer, or you know, anything about Aeterna, they have removed soul candles from the game, and with them removing soul candles, they also reworked the Aeterna tree, and they're changing the Aeterna mechanic. Aeterna is now going to be the new Ember form of this game. So if you played Season 9, you probably noticed that Embers are absolutely awful to get, and just terrible. They are changing it now that you get Embers from Aeterna, and if you're not happy with that, if you have like the Aeterna pet and you feel like this is a scam or whatever, you do have the option next season to trade in your pet for like these insignias, and these insignias can be exchanged for other drop pack spirits, specifically the ones you see here on screen. Okay, but I think that's going to be all from me. Oh, you can also exchange it for ultimate appearances. I think that's going to be all from me for today, YouTube. I hope you guys have a lovely time. Be sure to, you know, log in every single day on the new season because there will be a drop pet for logging in for 7 days straight. And I'll be seeing you guys again soon. Bye-bye. I will be uploading also like guides for the coming season, as well as some tier list stuff. Just initial reaction tier list. Maybe if the tier list ends up being a bit inaccurate once more changes happen. I'll update it again. But I'm looking extremely forward to the season. I'm very excited to play Bing 2. And I hope all of you are too. And all of you can just have a good time and enjoy the game. Thank you all so much for watching. Have a lovely day. Please like, comment, subscribe. Bye, YouTube. Bye-bye. Bye, YouTube.